won't be a sequel. But Jesse stays alive.
The biggest and the most ambiguous question in all of TV is, where is Jesse Pinkman? It's been 7 years not only since the Breaking Bad finale, but since we saw Jesse Pinkman. And after 5 years of the spin-off of Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, I was expecting even an appearance of Jesse, or maybe even a mention. Recently, Better Call Saul had some flash-forward scenes. It was of Saul just before the finale of Breaking Bad, but still not even a slight mention of Jesse. Over a month ago, Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul were teasing something big happening on their Twitter and Instagram, and many fans were really hyping this up to be the promised and announced movie. But the third and final picture that these actors would release showed that this was just a mezcal that the actors were working on. And as annoyed as people were, I think this just proves that they are aware of the hype that was caused. These actors must have known that there'd be a lot of fans hyped for the movie, and if anything, I think the way they promoted this mezcal just proves and hypes up this movie even more. And I think now everyone will know this is going to be a big and anticipated movie. But I wanted to make this video to have a whole video dedicated to Jesse Pinkman and the movie that he will be getting. I want to talk about what we should expect from this movie, what's going to happen to Jesse's character. So first of all, what will this movie be called? Well, the code name for this project, to keep it under wraps, is called Greenbrier. That's all we know so far about this movie, that it's going to be called Greenbrier. Now, what does that mean? Well, Greenbrier is actually an asparagus. It's a plant, and it's otherwise known as a smilax. And the main use for a Greenbrier is actually to treat cancer and tumours. So you could relate the word Greenbrier in the title of this movie to Jesse getting rid of all the crime that he's done. Remember, it's set to follow Jesse and he's on the run. All of the stuff he did before this movie, all the stuff he did with Walter White, he's going to be washing clean of that. This movie is going to close his story and continue it from all the stuff he did in the first 6 seasons. And a smilax plant is actually a green plant, and it's a tonic for many things. Of course, the main theme in Breaking Bad is green. It normally represents Walter White in many of the seasons of Breaking Bad when he wears that shirt. But I think the word Greenbrier is relating to Jesse just coming clean. I think Greenbrier is just a cryptic name for this project that hasn't actually been fully released or teased yet. Considering this movie is about Jesse Pinkman and continuing from Breaking Bad, I think the most relevant, fitting and relatable name to have for this movie would be Pinkman. I do think it's likely that this movie is going to be called that, so that Breaking Bad fans from years ago are going to see the name of this new movie and make sure to see it. So the most important thing is, what will this movie be about? How will this movie start? Well, I think the question of where is Jesse Pinkman is so ambiguous because there's exactly 5 possibilities for how we'll see Jesse in this movie. He could be 1, on the run. 2, he's going to find Brock. 3, he's going to Alaska. 4, he's already in Alaska. Or 5, he's in prison. Now, I think we can narrow this down and even combine those points because of an interview that Vince Gilligan, of course the writer of the show, had with GQ back when the show ended. And it's quite a bit darker than you would think. This is what Vince Gilligan had to say back in 2013. My personal feeling is that he got away, but the most likely thing, as negative as this sounds, is that they're going to find this kid's fingerprints all over this lab, and they're going to find him within a day or a week or a month. And he's still going to be on the hook for the murder of 2 federal agents. But yeah, even though that's the most likely outcome, the way I see it is that he got away and got to Alaska, changed his name and had a new life. You want that for the kid, he deserves it. Now, in this interview, Vince gave 2 possibilities of where Jesse would be. He's either in Alaska or in prison. Now, I don't think it's possible for Jesse to go to Alaska and have a new life and change his name at all, because his only connection to the guy that changes lives and makes new ones is Saul, and by the time Jesse is escaping in the finale, Saul is long gone in Nebraska. Remember, in the first ever episode of Better Call Saul, we see Saul's new life. That's the latest we see into the Breaking Bad universe. I've always thought they could do something where Jesse finds Saul in Nebraska, but I just don't think that's very likely. And remember, Jesse is the most likely suspect for the death of the federal agents Hank and Steve Gomez. Everyone else is dead, and like Vince said, his fingerprints would be on that lab in Jack's compound. A lot of us like to think that Jesse would have gone straight back to find Brock to look after him. But remember, by the time he escapes in the finale, it's been a whole year since Andrea was killed. So although no one was there to care for Brock, it's likely that he's just with his grandmother now, or in some kind of orphanage. I think it's pretty unlikely Jesse will be able to get to Brock without raising more suspicion. I also don't think they'd recast Brock. Remember, it's been about 7 years since we last saw the actor for Brock, and yeah, he definitely looks a lot older now. It's possible the movie will start with Jesse already looking after Brock. So this would take place about 7 years after the finale, and we'd catch up to them now. Brock would be about 14, 15, and Jesse would be about 40. But I just don't see Jesse getting to Alaska. Without Saul, I just don't see that happening. Because of course Ed, or the Disappearer, was only accessible through Saul. And now that Saul pretty much doesn't exist anymore, there's no way for Jesse to get to him. Unless Jesse remembers after all this time how to contact Ed, it's really unlikely he's anywhere near Alaska. But in terms of where Jesse Pinkman is right now, or at the start of this movie, it could pick up directly from this shot. And I think his first move is going to be getting to Badger and Skinny Pete. Now, before I talk about what I think this movie is actually going to be about, I think we need to address the suspicion of whether Walter White is really dead or not. I think it's pretty likely that Walter White did die in this shot. The stray bullet from his machine gun in the finale hit him pretty much where his cancer was, and it's quite poetic that he died from that. Of course, from that very moment he started to bleed out. Jesse went his separate ways. He went to the lab that they were working at, and he dropped to the floor. He bled out. I think it is pretty strange how the police acted when they entered the scene. They didn't run to Walter to assist him, to heal him, yet one of the policemen on the scene felt his neck for a pulse. So there are some things they could pull off. If they wanted to bring Walter White back, they 100% could, but I think just from what we saw in the finale, I think Walter White is dead. However, if they wanted to pull it off, they could easily bring him back. I find it odd that this is going to be such a big movie, and I think it would be odd if they didn't put Bryan Cranston in it somewhere. I think as an ode to him, they will. So I think there's going to be kind of flashback sequences from Jesse and Walter. Maybe around the time of just before the final season, we'll get some conversations between them or certain ideas he had with Saul. I think it's stuff that will always add to the universe rather than debunk what we already saw in Breaking Bad. Jesse was held captive for a very long time, so it's likely he might even be a bit mad. Maybe even see visions or ghosts of Walter. He was locked up for a whole year. They both pretty much wore. Walter was in his heart for a whole year in New Hampshire. Just think about all the things Jesse must have thought about, all the things he felt responsible for. It's enough to drive anyone mad, and I do think Jesse could have some of that. I think it's likely we're going to see Bryan Cranston in it somehow. I think if they wanted to bring Walt back, I think they could. But even if they do kind of confirm that Walt is in fact dead and he stays that way, I do think Jesse's going to see visions of him or ghosts of him. Breaking Bad is the story of Walter White, so maybe this movie will just consist of Jesse's story. But then again, everything that happened to Jesse in that story was because of Walter, and I do think there are some loose ends there. So what do I think this whole movie is about? What's the point of giving Jesse this continuation, this sequel in a way? Well, remember in November when they announced this Breaking Bad movie for Jesse, they also announced 3 movies for Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead, because funnily enough, these are characters from each show's amazing characters, amazing actors that were left extremely open-ended. And I think especially with Jesse, it's a story that needs to be finished. And the big question about the finale of Breaking Bad is, although Walter got his revenge and kind of provided for his family still, Jesse is still the one left open. And I think the whole story of this movie will be Jesse being on the run. He will be blamed for the murders of Steve and Hank, and it's going to be all about Jesse escaping and having a better life. Now, I also think it's likely by the time we get this movie, we'll see the climax of Better Call Saul. And I think the black and white scenes we get of Saul in his new life will slowly turn to a colour, a more pink colour, and we'll see Jesse has found Saul. And I think they will both find a way out. I think the final big question to ask is, when will this movie come out, and when it does, how can you watch it? Well, the first untitled The Walking Dead movie is going to be coming out in theaters, and that's actually by Universal. They're helping make that with Skybound, and of course AMC. However, with this movie, although I think Breaking Bad is a much bigger show than The Walking Dead, I do think, just like with Better Call Saul, it will come out on Netflix. But then again, we only found out that Universal were working on The Walking Dead movie when that short teaser came out, so whenever we get a teaser for this Jesse movie, it could easily be by Universal as well. But then again, The Walking Dead is said to be getting a trilogy, yet Breaking Bad are said to have one movie, which is like 2 to 3 episodes of Breaking Bad, so I can see it just happening on Netflix. And I think this movie will come out in 2021. I just find it really odd that we haven't heard a single thing about this Jesse movie. Even The Walking Dead, they tend to be a bit more secretive about things like this. Even though the Rick Grimes movie is currently untitled, they still had a teaser come out just after The Walking Dead Season 10 trailer, so it's a bit odd. Maybe we haven't been hearing about it because Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston wanted to pull their Mescal stunt, but either way I think it's fine. We should get something around late October this year or November. Of course, we've got to remember Better Call Saul is still going on, it's still running, so maybe they want to get that out of the way before they start promoting something else. But I think that's completely fine. I do think we're going to get a teaser or some kind of picture for this soon, but when I say soon, remember the fact that Better Call Saul is still running. Season 5 is coming next year, and it's looking like the last season of that will be Season 6. And eventually the story of Saul will catch up to him, and he will pass the torch to somebody else. I think we're going to hear more soon. But let me know what you think. On the top right of your screen, you're going to see an eye icon. Just click or tap on that and you can vote in the poll. Do you think I'm right about what I say about Jesse's story? Will the Jesse Pinkman movie pick up from here? Make sure to let me know. And of course, don't just vote in the poll. Make sure to comment down below what you think. I do try to read all of them. And if you enjoyed this video, you'll like my other video about Breaking Bad. We look at the biggest coincidence in TV history. A certain episode of Breaking Bad is extremely similar to an episode of The Walking Dead. What must have happened behind the scenes? Make sure to go and check it out. And one of the most violent deaths The Walking Dead comics ever saw is about to become due in the show, and I find out who that is in this video. So if you want to go and see that, that's going to be on the top right of your screen too. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to support me, then make sure to press the like button. It actually helps get this video seen. Make sure you're subscribed so that you're the first to hear about the Breaking Bad universe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.